You're listening to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm your host, Amy Stone. Here, I share stories from real people navigating the adventure that I call adulting. Are you ready? Me too. Let's do this. Well, hello, friends. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to Martha Burich, and we talk about her decision to get healthy. What makes this conversation interesting, maybe a little unique, but then again, maybe not, is that Martha made this decision after she retired. And so she shares her motivations and her concerns with me in our conversation. And it turns out these are the same things that I work on at my age. These are the same struggles that I had in my 40s. These are the same struggles I had in my 30s. So I hope you find the story of personal reinvention as inspiring and motivational as I did. Now, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's do this. Martha Burich, welcome to the Art of Imperfect Adulting. Are you ready for a fun chat?
I am ready.
Let's do it. All right. So I start almost all of my interviews by asking my guests, what part of the world do you call home?
Michigan.
Ooh, I have a kid that's living in Michigan. She's in Ann Arbor. What part of Michigan are you in?
I'm about an hour north of Detroit.
Oh, I'm a big fan of Detroit, to tell you the truth. I didn't know anything about it until I had somebody who in my family who was living there, and like everybody, I had heard all of the stuff like about Detroit. Actually, we were just watching. What were we watching recently? That came on TV. Terminator, I think.
Oh,
Terminator. Wait, is it Terminator or RoboCop? RoboCop is placed in Detroit, right? So, but I'm a pretty big fan of Detroit. I got to say, I think it's very cool. One of the things I think is awesome about Detroit, I will shout it out, is the architecture, the architecture of the classic buildings that are sort of in the downtown area. And as you drive out, like really, really very cool. All right. So in a second, we're going to start the official topic, but I want to ask one more warm up question to get to know you a little bit. Tell us what you would like to share, a hobby, a pastime, a passion project, something that is not related to your work or your family.
I like to walk the dogs.
Walking the dogs. All
That's
right. I think
my,
that's going to
that's,
come up
yeah.
in the main conversation too.
So,
Uh,
and if I'm not walking the dogs, I like to read.
Very good. Very good. How many dogs do you have?
Two, two
Two dogs.
rescues.
Two rescues. All right. So very good. So the topic of the day that you proposed is deciding to work on your health at 70 years old. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Sounds great. You know what? It doesn't matter our age. The things that are important, health is wealth. We
Health is
must
wealth.
remember that.
Yeah, health is wealth. So I'm going to start with what might be considered in some spaces a little bit of a rude question, and you can tell me to buzz off if you want. But since we're talking about starting this at 70, I'm curious how old you are, if you don't mind sharing.
I'm 70.
Oh, 70 now. So this is a new project. All right. Very, very good. All right. It's a good thing I asked. So it's good. It's a good thing I asked. All right. So one of the things the listeners of this show are not in their 70s. And in fact, the demographic skew, it's young, which I think is fantastic, like 25 and up, and a lot of people in their 30s. And when I was in one of the things I have about health is that it's really, really great to get stories from people who are older than we are or have already gone through some of the things. Because, when I was 25, I didn't have to work very hard on my health. Like it was like I had a lot of energy, I slept really well, all of those things. But I think that these are good questions. All right. There are two things that you mentioned in your intake form that you changed. And I want to start, though, by backing up and asking you, how would you have described your lifestyle in terms of health, like before now, like ages 0 to 69? Were you a pretty healthy liver, or what kind of
Oh,
lifestyle did you have?
yeah, no, that's really a good question. Most of my life, I was very active. I used to ride my bicycle. At age 18, I went on an 80-mile bike ride. I was the only female, it was all males, and it took me forever. I think I was 2 hours behind everybody else, and it was so hilly. But you know what? I finished that bike ride. And my husband and I used to ride our bicycles a lot. We would go 30 miles just for fun. And I also, we used to do a lot of aerobics, step aerobics. So I've always been involved in health. But then I just slowed down a little bit after I retired. I didn't get quite as healthy and I put on some weight. So I really had to get control of that. And and something that a lot of people don't realize, Amy, is that as you get older, you require fewer calories. So the older you get, the less food you can eat without gaining weight. So pay attention, everybody. Get control of your weight now. Don't wait until you're older. It'll be more difficult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you were an active person, you were cycling, and then when you retired and doing step aerobics, I think I was permanently scarred by step aerobics in my 20s. Not it's just good when the whole room is going, grapevine to the right, and I was going the wrong way. I was like, I don't, little bit. But so what you did two things, I guess, this year, in this year of 70. One is sobriety, and the other one is increasing your movement with daily walks and going to the gym.
Oh, you
If
know
the,
what? Yeah, I guess I didn't, I stopped drinking 7 years ago.
okay,
So
so I have the
yeah,
sequence wrong. Okay, so seven
yeah.
years
So
ago, you
I
kicked
probably
alcohol
didn't.
to the curb.
Right, yeah. And that was
Okay.
after I retired. And this happens to many, many people after they retire. Suddenly their purpose is gone. The reason I didn't drink because I went to work. So the next thing you know, I'm drinking every day. So I had to, really get control of that. And because I had no reason to get up in the morning anymore. And I thought, well, what the heck? I'll just have a drink at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't fill my life with new activities after I retired, which is also another very important thing to think about.
It is one of the big transformations, identity transformations that adults go through is retirement, from worker to retirement. It's probably shifting because the workplace is shifting for sure. But it is interesting to me that even though it's one of the most common transitions adults go through, very few people are really ready for it.
Right.
And it can, or you think you're ready for it, and it still catches people by surprise. And I can't say that I have the closest thing that I've come to retirement is when I left the corporate workforce to like
Mhm.
be with my family. So I haven't actually gone through it. So this is something that I read about. So you found that you were filling your time with alcohol, and then you decided to kick that to the curb. And you were doing daily drinking, you said before you stopped. Was it just something that came to your mind where you're like, I just am going to change this? Or was there something that happened in your life that an event that sort of let you know this was something you didn't want to do anymore?
That's a really good question. Luckily for me, I didn't have any, I didn't drive when I was drinking or anything like that. I usually drank at home alone. So no, I didn't have an event like that, but I started thinking, is this really how you plan to live? You're still young, 63. I thought you've got a lot of years left. You plan to just drink yourself and wind up who knows where, because there's really only three places people who drink a lot wind up, and that's the hospital, institution, or hospital, jail, or die or dead. And I
Yeah.
thought, you know what? I don't want to do that. I don't want to ruin my health because I was in good health. And I thought, you know what? You got to get control of this. So I went to AA. I went to
That was
AA.
my next question, was to ask whether or not you just did it by yourself or if you followed a program and joined a support group.
Mhm.
So you did this with the support of a community, and so 7 years.
Yeah.
What changes have you seen as a result of making this change?
Well, let's see. Since I stopped drinking, I published a book. I help others a whole lot more. I'm certainly more involved in the community. Now I go to the jail and treatment center weekly and talk with addicts and alcoholics. I found like a whole new purpose uh, because when we're drinking every day, we're pretty much stuck, self-centered, stuck in,
Sure.
oh, what was me? What am I going to do? Poor me, blah, 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 blah. And then once you stop drinking and you get involved in a program and you start, people start saying to you, well, what are you doing for the world? What are you doing for other people? What's your, what's your purpose? what are you going to do to make the world a better place? And then it started me thinking in a whole nother direction. Of course, but that had always like been being a teacher and everything, that had always been my purpose, was to help others. But then after I retired, I found that gap there where I thought, well, gosh, now what? Who am I?
Yeah.
Where do
That's a really powerful story, actually. So you describe it as purpose. It sounds to me as you tell the story that you also found a new community,
mm-hmm,
a new
mm-hmm,
community. And I think the two things, this is just my opinion and people can disregard. I think the two things are sometimes connected. So when you tell the story of making this change in your behavior, you mentioned that what you were doing is drinking at home alone, and then part of your path out of this was through a community, a sober community, which yours was AA. There are more than one type of recovery community and program, but
mm-hmm,
and then also you became a part of a mission-driven activity, which is going to visit the jail and talking to people about their experiences. That's a very good arc. That's a successful story. That's a lot of changes. What did anything else change in how you felt about your days, or anything else that changed as a result of making the decision to shift this activity?
well, it definitely improved the relationships with the people around me, and that definitely changed and helped and became much more positive. Yes, it just is, and I only the only people I really spend time with are people who don't drink or do drugs, unless I'm at the jail or the treatment center, and those are people who are trying to stop. So I surround myself with really positive people who are doing everything they can to live full lives and to be useful and productive,
Yeah,
which I think is
so
really important.
it's there's a business saying that came from a sales coach, which is, you are the sum of the
That's
five
right.
people you hang around most
Yeah,
often, right? Ray
yeah.
Dalio. And what's interesting about that is that even though that comes from like a business background, you can sort of transfer it to so many other things. And you use this in changing a behavior for sobriety. When you surround people who are doing the thing that you want to do, then it becomes easier to stick to that and make it happen. If you wanted to learn how to make lasagna and you stepped into a room of 25 people who were making lasagna, it would be easier for you to do that. And I think it's an important tool for behavior change, but it can be hard in some situations to find the group that is going to lead you out of it. And so that not when we're talking about alcohol, because there are established groups and they're pretty well known. I don't know anybody who hasn't heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, I mean, you would have to be living under a very big rock. But so you also then get committed to movement and going to the gym. And you talked about walking with your dogs. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that newer? Is that this year? Like, what has been going on with that?
Well, walking the dogs, let's see, it was during COVID that
So
I
5 years
thought,
ago.
yeah, that was when I had put on, I don't know, like 50 pounds. And I thought, boy, I got to do something about this. So I started walking the dog every day, and I lost 50 pounds walking the dog during COVID. So, but then I put it back on. So then I thought, well, all right, I think it was like 3 years ago. I thought, well, I better do something different. So then I went to the gym every day, and I got my name on the leaderboard at the gym. And I was number one for months and months, that I was at the gym every single day. So, and then that put me on a whole nother trajectory of good health and watching what I eat and all that sort of stuff, paying attention. These days it's really difficult to know what to eat anymore. It seems like all our food is so adulterated. And luckily, I do live around a lot of farms, so I'm able to get a lot of, fresh farm eggs from the farmers here that have chickens and things. But yeah, it's really disconcerting to go into the grocery store and think, well, gosh, what can I eat that's really healthy for me and
Yeah.
safe?
It can be very confusing.
Hmm.
And even if you're focusing on eating whole foods, like proteins and vegetables and fruits, even that can be confusing. So, because it seems like the people who are advising what we're supposed to eat, they change their minds like all the time. Like, it's like when I grew up, it was pasta, but don't eat eggs, right? We don't eat eggs, we don't eat cheese. We, pasta and rice and low fat dressing.
Mm.
And then now, there's us, and some of it changes with your age. Now it's, an emphasis on protein and all of these things. I mean, very rarely do I find people who are giving vegetables a hard time, but you'll find people who are like, don't eat fruit. Fruit is too much sugar. And I, at one point, was just like, you know what? That's one that I'm just going to say, you may be right, but I'm not going to, I'm not, if I'm going to eat a banana, I'm going to eat a banana. I'm not going to worry about
Right. Yeah.
it.
We all have
Yeah.
to decide what hill we're gonna what stand on, and
Yeah. The hill we're going to die on. So at first it's like eat salmon, but don't eat this kind of salmon, eat this fish, but don't eat tilapia. It's like, it's hard to keep up. It's like, all right, what am I supposed to be doing here? So, all right. So you get into the gym. How did you decide? Was it a community gym? How did you decide what gym you were going to be doing? And tell us a little bit more
yeah,
about this leaderboard challenge, because I don't know if they have one of those at my gym.
the gym was the closest one, so I went there, and the very first thing I got a personal trainer from the beginning because I remember looking at all the equipment. I didn't even know how to use the treadmill. I was clueless. All those buttons on that treadmill. Anyway, so, and I thought, you know what? You got to get control and you've got to get disciplined. So what I did was I would put my clothes and my gym shoes out the night before, and I would get up in the morning and I would put those on and go to the gym every
So,
day.
all right, that is. Now, have you ever read? What have you? This is a question I didn't plan out, so I'm going to stumble over it a little bit. But have you ever read any of the habit books or any of the people who talk about changing habits and setting up new habits?
Oh, atomic habits and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, have you read those?
Probably. I read so much, I forget the books.
Okay.
We have this really wonderful used bookstore down the road, and I go in there, and the next thing you know, I've got 10 more books in my hands.
So that's fair. But so you laid that out though, how you got this started. So you picked the gym that was close to you, which is a way of removing an obstacle, right? Like make it as easy as possible. And then you said you hired a trainer, so you hired somebody to remove any of those other obstacles. And then you talked about packing your bag the night before so that it was ready. That's almost an example. That's a pretty good example of setting up, trying to set up a habit ladder to get through. And that's why I asked. I was like, I wonder if she did this on purpose. One of the things I love this story about you and picking up movement and things like that. You started by walking with your dogs during this thing, but when you went into the gym, what were you intimidated at all about the gym? Like, what were your concerns and what were the things
Oh,
you were thinking about when you started?
definitely. It's such a good question, Amy. Here I was, this old fat lady, and you're surrounded by all these buff people, skinny, attractive women, blah blah blah, wearing their little gym outfits and things. And
That's
I
right.
thought, you can't focus on that, Martha. What you need to focus on is you. And you just need to do what you can do every day and get better. And I got a story about that. So one day I'm in the gym. I don't know, I'd been there probably 8 months by then, and I had lost a lot of weight. And there was a woman there, and she was probably, I don't know, 80 pounds overweight, 60, something like that. And I noticed her, and she would come in and work out. And I said something to her. I said, I see you coming here every day. I'm very impressed. You're really working hard. And then she told me her story. I hope I don't cry. She had been in a car accident, and they were going to have to amputate her leg, but they didn't. What they did was they used her leg and then surrounded it. I don't know if I got this right. They surrounded her leg with an artificial leg or something, but they told her she'd never walk again. They told her she'd never walk again. And there
Wow.
she was in the gym walking and working out. So, if you feel at all intimidated about it, most of the people there are so nice and friendly, and find someone who's going to support you. And everyone supported me. Everyone supported me. It was so helpful. It really, I learned a lot there. And then they didn't even start the leaderboard until I had been there like 8 months. And then they thought, and I said to them, I said, you know what, you ought to have some kind of challenge for people. I'm getting bored. Well, the next thing you know, I'm the number one person, on the board. And they started writing down. how many times you showed up in the gym and who was number one, who was there every day. And so you'd get your name and how many days you showed up at the gym. And that really, really motivated me. So next thing you know, I'm like, boy, I'm going to make sure I'm on there every single time.
That's spectacular. Are you a competitive person? Would you describe yourself as a competitive person?
I didn't think so, but I guess I never thought of it before. But yeah, I think I am. I think I am. What, because I was like, hey, that's me on there. Hey, did you see me? My name's on there. I used to post it on Facebook, and I'd have the picture up there. See, I show up every day. I'm old. I could do it.
I love it. No, I absolutely love it. It's a really, really motivational story that you would get to the gym starting then and commit to it. I do think that it's a thing that people get turned around in their head that this is a place for people who are already fit. This is a place for young people. This is a place, for the people
Yeah.
who are doing all of the things. And I think that you get some credit. I want to give you some credit for having the confidence or the motivation or the dedication or commitment to yourself to get in there and do it. So I'm gonna ask you about so what has changed? I asked you this with the alcohol, but what has changed? How would you describe the change since you added the gym routine into your life? Like what has modified?
Well, pretty much everything. I try to make sure I get at least 6 or 7 thousand steps every day, get some activity. I don't do the gym anymore. Now I'm back to walking the dogs every day
Okay.
because the weather's so nice, and I don't want to take that drive anymore to the gym. So, and the dog, he's really strong.
Yeah.
Talk about a workout. And I live, we have basically a three-story house. And so when I go downstairs, if I want to use the bathroom or anything, I go upstairs. There's a bathroom down there, but I go upstairs. So I try to get those extra steps all the time. The same, park far away at the store to get the extra steps. So I try to do everything so I can get some more activity um, uh, in in my daily routine. And I'm not a big TV watcher, but I do have a lot of work I have to do on the computer every day. So I have to watch out that I'm not sitting too long before I get up and do things. But with two dogs, they don't allow you to sit too long. Okay, you have
Right.
you have to
Right.
get up and tend to them and help them. So yeah, and also I did have a trainer. Um, I think the last trainer I had was 6 months ago or so. I was still going to the gym, and he said to me, he goes, Martha, you work harder than a lot of my 50-year-old clients. So
I mean,
that was nice.
I'm sure that's true. I think the goals change, and I think that also, well, I mean, I think I'm 51, and so it's a weird age, 50. Good in lots of ways, but things are changing. Things are changing, topsy turvy. All right. So when you look back in time, like if you were to look back, um, back in time, what do you think is the reason you didn't maybe do these things 10 years ago? 15
Mhm.
years ago.
Well, I was working then, so I was really pretty busy with my job. I was a teacher, a special ed teacher, so we had a lot of stuff to do. So I think that might be part of it. And when you retire, time really it can be a blessing or a curse. So in the beginning, it was a curse because I didn't know what to do with it. But then, once I stopped drinking and thought, wait a minute, now I have all these opportunities. And that really is the thing, Amy, is I have so many opportunities now. Once I stopped drinking and started focusing on others, I am so busy every day. You know, I have total purpose. I have so much to do and so many people to interact with every day. Now I'm on a podcast at least 3 times a week. I've gotten 3 articles in national magazines. One of them, the AA Grapevine.
Very
Uh,
nice.
yes, an article called "God Speaks to Us in Silence," but in the silence. And so yeah, I'm just so busy now between writing and being on podcasts and and exercising and taking care of the dogs. In fact, we're going to be going to. I got to tell you this story. Okay, so about 2 years ago, I hired a dog trainer. Now, with one of the dogs, I went to puppy training, and it worked pretty good. But um, there's 3 people in this house, and anyway, so I hired a dog trainer. It was very expensive, and he came to the house twice, and on the third visit, he said, "Look, lady, I'm not going to take your money anymore." There's three people in this house, and none of you are on the same page with those dogs.
That's fair. That's fair. When I was growing up, my father used to get very upset at us for untraining the dog when he had to go back, send the dog back to training. And he was always very clear that it was less about the dog needing training and more about my brother and I needing to, be more be more consistent. We were not, newsflash. We were not. So, all right. So in a minute, we're going to do the final questions. I want to give you a chance to tell people about what you're doing these days and how they can find you online. I think there's a sub story here that is that you like, it's really sort of a re-identify like redefinition of yourself that you did after retirement, and then these two changes really supported it. But you were a teacher, you went through retirement, you struggled with who you are and what was your purpose. Tell everybody what you're doing now and how they can find you.
Well, now I teach parenting lessons, and I wrote the book, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children, which is endorsed by Jack Canfield of Chicken Soup for the Soul and the Success Principles. Jack said about this book, it has the potential to transform the lives of families worldwide. It's only 60 pages, Amy, and every page tells you what to do when the kid misbehaves. What do you do when they won't put their seatbelt on? What do you do when they won't take the garbage out? What do you do? So it's just a really good, easy read to put in your purse or your diaper bag, whatever you need. Because what happened was when our son was very young, he's 42 now, but when he was 4, he was spoiled rotten because we didn't know how to say no. We were good parents instead of responsible parents. So the exact same information we used to turn him around is what I put in that book. So that's pretty much what I do now. My intention is to, make sure that that book finds its way into the homes of parents who need it all over the world. And that's pretty much what I spend my time doing because I think it's so important. And also my parenting class, I have a 4-week class. We're going to get control of your child in 4 weeks. We're going to either eliminate the worst behavior or make a big dent in it and totally transform your relationship with that child in 4 weeks. So that's
Very
what I
nice.
spend my time doing now.
Very nice. And I have one story to tell, and then I'm going to talk about your parenting class. True story. One of my kids was very into the princess dresses. So every time we went anywhere, she was wearing a costume. And at one point, actually said in the backseat of the car, everything is going on. I remember very clearly saying, "No, I'm positive Cinderella wears her seatbelt in the car seat." And I just, as it was coming out of my mouth, it's like things I thought I'd never say. Positive, because she was very concerned that it was going to mess up and squish the dress. And I was like, no, 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 I am really pretty sure that Cinderella wore her dress. It wore her seatbelt with her dress. And she took it and off we went, buckle up, here you go. I was like, things you never thought you'd
Um,
say as a parent. All right, so
that's
you
for
do have a
sure.
course, Parenting Solutions, a transformative 4-week Zoom course. Normally it's for sale, $397. Special for the audience, a $200 coupon, which is a really generous offer. There's a link in the show notes, and all of the details about the course. For everybody that's listening and watching and thinks that offer sounds fantastic, if you're driving, if you're walking, if you're on the treadmill at the gym, any of those things, you don't need to worry about the link because the easiest way to get it is to subscribe to the Imperfect Adulting email community. And then I send it directly to your email box and you just click on it. You'll also get notifications about when new episodes drop and links to all the offers that the guests mentioned. All right. So are you ready, Martha, for the
Uh-oh.
final rapid fire questions?
Sounds like a plan. Okay.
All right, let's do it. Do you cook?
Oh my goodness, I love to cook from scratch.
Okay, so this is a good question then. What is a kitchen item that you use so often that you would describe it as something you can't live without?
Spatula.
Spatula. All right, very good. Very good. That's good. That's very good. All right. When and if you travel, and you're packing, are you a person that makes a comprehensive list to pack, or are you a person who can just do it by throwing stuff in on the fly?
Oh, well, that's a good question too. I went to Europe with just a backpack when I traveled, so I planned it out pretty well.
Yes, yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did. How long was the trip?
It was 2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right, very good, very good. I did a school year, pretty much mostly with a backpack and a suitcase. And at the end of that trip, I did not bring them home. I made space in my suitcase to bring home the things I bought by throwing away the clothes I had worn for 9 months. I was like, I never want to see these pants again. Done. So, all right. Do you have a favorite color? And if so, what is it?
It's purple.
Purple,
Right
which
on.
I can see on your slides that you chose purple as your accent color. So that's a lot of fun. All right. That's it. Martha Burich, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on the show today.
You're a great host. Thank you, Amy. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening today. I hope that you enjoy the show. And before I go, I want to encourage you to become a bigger part of the conversation. Obviously, subscribe wherever you're listening to the show. Listen to more episodes. That'd be great. Obvi again, please write a review and tell your friends about the show. That truly is a great help for getting the show in front of new people. Okay, but more fun for you yourself, head over to imperfectadulting.com and join the email community. You'll get some free stuff right away, and that way you'll begin to get the emails about the podcast. This includes the links for the special offers from the guests, and it's the only way to get that. Also, if you aren't in the mood to listen, I actually include an article directly in those emails. Whee! Now, if you love this and you crave more time with me, Amy, as a coach, a mentor, or just adultier adult, numero uno, check out The Village. If you have a story you want to share with the listeners, I'd love to hear from you. I have an open application. Just let me know you want it. And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember, the journey is the destination. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, not me. Well, until just now, I did just say it. But what I want you to hear today is that if your adulting journey isn't going the way you expected, that may not mean that you're lost. It may just mean that you're on your way. This is Amy Stone, signing off. The Imperfect Adulting podcast is created and produced by Amy Stone and Amy Says So. Anything expressed on this show is offered as entertainment, and the views of the guests may not always represent the ideas and viewpoints of the host. That's me. Amy does not intend or hold herself out to provide professional advice or recommendations of any kind. In the end, you and you alone need to make those kinds of decisions based on your personal and individual situation, needs, circumstances, and comfort level.